Hi, this is Ben Baxter with Accent Software. Today I wanted to bring you a video on the project's capabilities, specifically around project creation. So if I'm in a project profile, which I am, then I have access to my project list. From the list I can see all of the projects that are available to me. So when I want to create a new one, of course I could always come to the top and I can click the new button. That gives me a blank project that I can then select my customer, fill out the task list, plan out my details, all of those things, but it would be very manual. So what I want to do is make it more automated. If I come to a specific project, this is one that has a structure that I went through on a previous video, and it has a budget in place. So there are already planning lines that determine resources and material that are going to be used on that type of project. So if I want to recreate a new job for maybe a new customer or even the same customer, I'm going to go up to the top, and under the Home drop-down, I'm going to select Copy Project. The first choice I have is to determine how much of that project I want to copy. If I leave the project task number from and to blank, then it will copy all of the project tasks that are defined on job 40. If I wanted to do a subset of those, then I could come in and say, okay, just grab from 0120 to 0129, and it would create my new project with only those task lines. In my case, I'm going to leave it blank. I do have the option of choosing to pull forward the project planning lines, which would be the previous budget from that other job, or I could do the project ledger entries, which means I'm pulling the actual costs of that project. So that's usually when you're copying from a completed project and you want to pull forward the most accurate information as to what happened. Now, the only problem with doing project ledger entries is when a project you're copying may have had an exception to the rule, right? So they accidentally ordered more material, or they consumed more material, or they spent too long doing certain activities. I may be bringing into my new project an inflated budget. Now, the same issue could be said for project planning lines, where I may have had a previous budget that was not accurate, and my actuals are more representative of what future projects are going to be. So you do need to evaluate the previous job that you're copying from to determine what makes the most sense in terms of building a new budget based on that information. Now, you do always have the option of creating none, in which case you bring forward the task structure, but you don't bring forward any of the details. So I'm going to leave mine on project planning lines because my previous job does not have any actual information on it. Your other choice is to choose between budget and billable lines. So I can say just pull forward the budget lines. So I'm pulling forward the estimate without any of the planned billable events. So if my invoicing structure, the way we define milestones, changes between projects, then I would only want to do my budget lines. If I have a solid budget and a very standardized billable platform in terms of the milestones that I bill for, then I could use budget plus billable. If I only want to do the billing part of the project and not the estimate, then I could pull that part of it forward too. That one's less common. Most would be just the budget lines. If I were to switch this over to ledger, then this include ledger entries becomes editable, where right now it is not. I do not need a starting date and an ending date. Again, this is just a filter option to control when those dates come in. And then I have the copy to. Now, the project number field is blank, meaning I could freeform type as long as my job number series allows for that, or I could type in something that's in the series. So in my case, it's job, couple zeros, and then I believe 90 is the next one in my series. So I could use that as the next project number. Now in this case, you do want to know, what if I use the next number in the series? Is that going to cause a problem the next time I manually create a project? And it will not. The system's actually smart enough to identify that you've run this process, and it will make sure that the next time you manually create a project, it'll bump it up to the next number in this series. And then you can define it what you want. So we'll call this project copied from 40. Okay, and then of course I can change the customer to be a different customer. Now, something that is a little hidden is this apply function. And so you do want to expand this out and make sure this copy quantity is selected if you want to pull forward the actual hours, the actual material quantities into your new project. Now you may not want that. So if I leave this unchecked, it will bring forward those project planning lines, all of my budget detail, but the quantity will be 0. And so it won't actually be recording any costs on the project, where if I check this box, then all of my quantities come into the new project and will be reflected. You have the option of copying the project prices. So if I have manually entered the unit price for my planning lines, then I would likely want to include the project prices, because otherwise it's going to pull from the resources, the items in my system, and it may not reflect what was on the previous project. So that's an option if you are doing custom project pricing on the project itself. So with these choices selected and knowing that I'm creating job 90, then I can go ahead and hit OK. It's going to create my project, lets me know that it was successfully created and that it's in status planning. We haven't gone through the statuses, but that just means that it's in a state where it's not creating demand for any of the items in my project. And then if we go and look at it, you'll notice that structure looks very similar. The budget is identical, and I can drill into any of these lines and see the planning, the resources, the items, the quantities, everything is consistent with what was on that previous project, again, based on how I selected it. So that's the big one. That's how you can create projects from previous projects, whether they were completed, they're in status open or planning or quoted. You have the ability to copy them regardless of what process it's in. You just want to make sure that you control the details into how it's copied. Now, if you were to create a job manually, so we'll go ahead and add one to the system, when I'm creating this project, and I'll call it new project and give it a customer. Once I've created my project, now I have blank planning lines. So again, this is the very manual process of doing it one at a time. You do have the ability to copy project tasks from, and by doing that, then I can come in and select the previous project that I want to copy from. So again, we'll use that project 40. If I leave it blank, it's going to do the exact same thing as what the copy project did. The difference is that it's not creating a new project. It's simply copying to an existing project. And I have the same ability to copy the quantities. And so with this setting, I'm really making this brand new project that I created, quote unquote, from scratch, and pulling in all the details from that previous project 40. So again, full budget, full tasks, everything is identical. So now, but switching between the two, really the only difference is the description and the customer that it relates to. So that's how that information works. I will point out that it does pull forward your external document number, which is generally your customer's PO. So that doesn't make sense necessarily when the company changes the customer that you're using. So make sure you wipe that out once the copy process is done. You do not have that issue because you're not copying the project header information when you use the copy project tasks. So those are two ways to speed up the creation of your projects and get your estimating and budgeting done quicker. I hope this was a helpful video. If you have any questions on projects, if you have any questions on Business Central in general, I really hope you reach out to our Accent Software support team. We very much like helping clients better utilize their Business Central investment, and we hope we can help you out too.